positive. On the human side, I mentioned this earlier, we tend to think of those involved in the game as being the ones dying violently as it relates to this situation, the war on drugs. I'll show you some things in a couple slides later where that's not the case, but I want you to keep that in your mind. We have innocent people being caught up in this whole thing. They are dying and they are being seriously injured. War on drugs was a domestic success. There should be a notable decline in. Now, if they were succeeding, there should be a decline in purity and production, correct? Because there would be less drugs to go around, therefore they have to cut it more, therefore purity levels go down, okay? Production, even though they may step up production outside of the U.S., what comes into the U.S. should be less. I mean, logically speaking, that's what should happen. Law enforcement, our expenditures, they should go down. Because if we're succeeding, there will be less need to do whatever, and we don't need so much overtime, we don't need all of these rental vehicles for undercover purposes, and okay, if we're winning, these things should be going down. Arrest should be going down. Because we're getting rid of all the bad guys, right? Putting them all in jail. Or the people that we really have. Some are bad, don't get me wrong, there are a lot that are bad. I mean, bad news, but for the most part, most of our drug arrests are for possession. Not violent crimes, folks. Non-violent possession crimes.
Yeah, I apologize. I have to leave in just about 5 minutes. But do you not see the federal government or agencies or entities within the federal government that have helped to funnel these drugs over the years? Again, going back to Air America or Iran-Contra or the CIA plane that went down just with 4 tons of cocaine just a year and a half ago. That combined with the commodification, the privatization of the prison system, of the funding channels, okay? Do you see this from your perspective, with your experience? Do you see this as a significant challenge to what you're proposing here?
Our federal agencies are a challenge. What you're speaking to is, in my opinion, once again, back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, I had no doubt that that was in fact occurring. We are probably today dealing with the aftermath of that.
Really?
Now
really? I mean, the idea, what you just presented here, that it hasn't gone down, it's only gone up. And that those same supply chains have been just cut off when there was no one there to turn that valve off?
Now I'm talking about my perspective and my opinion.
Fair enough.
My opinion, because see, this is it. I want to deal and stay strictly with facts that are known to me, because yes, the conspiracies are out there, and I'm sure there are people out there that have that factual knowledge and foundation to speak from. I'm not one of them. Me, I can speak directly to the facts of how communities are in danger, how communities are being harmed, how neighborhoods are falling apart, how civil liberties are being violated every minute. I can speak to poorly trained police officers and poor supervision, and you have officers who are going out here trampling all over the edges of the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment. I can speak to the people who are dying in these communities. I can speak to the money that we're spending in law enforcement on these failed policies. You know, that's the kind of stuff I can speak to treatment. I can speak to the lack of education in these communities as it relates to it. The government is the issue here. There's no doubt in my mind that the government, on many different levels, okay? Thursday on CNN, I debated Asa Hutchinson. Are you familiar with Asa? Former DEA head. And one of the comments that he says is that this is not something that our citizens here in the United States would support. Legalization of, and we were just talking about marijuana, okay, at that point. And I'm like, my response was, because he talked about, well, referendum after referendum has failed, you know, the votes have been out there, you know, and the people have showed that this is not something that they want to support. I said, wait a minute. I said, let's take CNN. I know quite a few people who watch CNN. As a matter of fact, in my circle, I don't know anyone who doesn't watch CNN. CNN was conducting a poll that very day, that very morning, and a few thousand people have responded to this poll. And I brought that up. I said, let's talk about the poll that is currently in place. I said, at 7:10 this morning, this was about 7:40. I said, at 7:10, 93% of the viewers who responded to that poll said we need to legalize marijuana, not for medical purposes. They weren't doing a little soft shoe dance around it. They said it was 93%. 93%. Of that, 48% said legalize all drugs. We need to do something, and we need to do it now. Only 7% said no, let's not legalize it. The government's the issue, folks. Not us. Not us. So that would mean out of you guys sitting here where there's not 100, there's probably like maybe 1/3 of one of you would be against it. Would be against it. It's the government.
But as the gentleman brought up as well, sorry, I don't know your name. Fernando. As he brought up, there are a lot of spin-off.
Of course. They keep us brainwashed for the ones that don't do their research.
Keeping us brainwashed, but also creating spin-off industries. And these industries are going to protect their interests by perpetuating the brainwashing and everything else.
I almost mentioned some industry names, but I'm not going to do that because,
okay.
Like I said, I don't have the facts about them.
There was
But I know
story
this
here in Pennsylvania recently,
right.
In one of our local counties, about 2 judges. Lackawanna County, yeah, with the juvenile detention, I don't even remember the name of the companies. But again, our judges were touched by the same. We're funneling, right.
Well, corruption, and I'll speak to that, corruption is a huge issue here. It's huge. Huge because we fail to take the profit out of this. We fail to take the money out of this game, or at least transfer it to where we can tax it. Hemp can be used so many different ways that if we were able to grow it in this country, not first of all, jobs would go up. Okay, we have jobs for people. But there are companies that do not want to see hemp come into this country to where we can grow it because their market share of textiles and all these other related things would go down. It's got so many uses.
DuPont helped to legalize it in the first place.
I didn't say that.
I did. We all did. But those companies are going to have to fail, just like Bed Bath & Beyond and everybody else. So get in line with the rest of us.
It's part of this capitalist society we live in.
Sorry.
I mean, that's the way it is. But I'm going to move on real quick. We're going to have questions at the end, but I thank you for the question because, yes, the government primarily, and there are many different reasons as well. They are the issue here because the politicians, believe it or not, the politicians know the right way to go with this. But
I appreciate
that's a whole nother show with other folks other than me up here about that. Arrest, drug seizures, and consumption. All of those things should be going down if they were in fact succeeding. Now, let's look a little bit about purity levels of cocaine and heroin. 1981, these were the levels. Just about 60% for cocaine, 19% for heroin. Actually, the heroin that I always